All right, so we're starting now. This is a Core podcast episode that's a little bit different from what we usually do. Kevin is not in that seat. It's actually Tong Lee, right?
We might look alike.
What a great start to the podcast.
We can say that, we can say
okay,
that.
all right. Anyways, so Tong, I guess, can you introduce some of the other people that you've brought with you here to Korea? You are not alone here. You've come with your crew, who are part of the TNS Tampa Never Sleeps team, right?
Yeah. So we have a few people from the TNS team, some of our full-time team. We have Southpaw Flash, Brandon Osfelt. He's one of our lead commentators, and he's also one of our cameramen. So, helps out with logistics and things like that. I have Lucas here, who's in charge of our production. He's basically anything that's broadcasted on our channel, he has a hand in it. He manages the other staff that also run the streams for our channel. So, and then we have Ricky there, who's going to be our project manager. He basically helps manage events, any kind of communication coming in and out. And then we also had Max, who left early, but he's in charge of our content. So managing, things that go to our YouTube, TikTok, things of that nature. So
awesome. So how did you get into fighting games? Everyone has their origin story in the FGC. And I guess I'm assuming, from your age that you probably started in the arcades. Correct me if I'm wrong on that, but how was your origin story?
So the first fighting game I've ever played was Street Fighter II, the very first one. And I got that when I was actually living in Korea. So I was born in Korea, and the first console I was ever given was a Super Famicom. And Street Fighter II was the second game I ever got, right after Mario, obviously. And yeah, in like 1991, I think it was. I was just playing it. I had a lot of fun with it. I didn't know it was a fighting game per se. I was a kid, so but I just had a lot of fun playing it. And yeah.
So that's a good game to start on. Of course, I started on World Warrior as well. But you were talking about the Super Famicom version, or I guess I played the Super Nintendo version. But they're pretty much the same version, except I guess one was the Japanese version, one was the North American version. Do you remember the code where you can pick there's like a code when the Capcom screen comes up, you can input it and you can get the Champion Edition colors for the characters. I don't know if you ever knew about that.
No, I didn't know anything about that. I didn't know any cool cheat codes or anything. I didn't even know how to do the moves. I was just punching and kicking.
Yeah, I mean, I guess back in those days, people didn't know about frame traps and the idea of combos were just beginning, and it was a very different time with fighting games. And now we've seen this stuff for so long. So I just want to know a little bit more about your background in this, Tampa Never Sleeps thing. How did this start? So you're a tournament organizer, but there's TOing, but then there's also the broadcasting aspects. There's a lot of things going on. Can you tell me a little bit about Tampa Never Sleeps?
Sure. I mean, the origin of Tampa Never Sleeps, we started back in 2011, where I was like, it'd be really fun if we had a tournament in our town where, people could play fighting games and things like that. We had some locals and stuff, but I wanted to get something bigger going, and I wanted something to help promote my video game store. So I used to own a video game store back then. I opened it in 2008, and, we would host Smash tournaments and stuff like that, terribly organized. But, I was still learning at the time. And then 2011 came, and I had already attended CEO a couple of times. Obviously, CEO started in 2010. And after 2011, I was like, man, it's so cool. Orlando has something like that. Tampa needs something like that. So I was like, you know what? Let me run this tournament in my store. And we opened it, and we started at 9 p.m. Because we're like, I don't want it to get in the way of sales for my game store. I don't want to lose money to run this tournament. I'm already going to lose money running this tournament. So we're like, okay, let's just rearrange the store at 9 p.m. and then we'll just run it till 3 a.m. But we got to give it a catchy name. That way people know that it's going to be late. So what do we call it? And we're like, well, they call the one in Orlando Community Effort Orlando. Let's call it Tampa something.
Oh, okay. That makes sense. Yeah. So this is, I noticed, I think I saw on the About page of y'all's Twitch page, and you guys are talking about you guys made a joke in there about like what we do is make people stay up late at night.
Yeah.
Right. So you guys kind of kept that spirit even in the online tournament stuff that you do. So this is an interesting thing because I see this in a lot of places around the world. In the FGC, it's very difficult to kind of make a place that's just for fighting game FGC stuff. Like to make people make churches. Like churches have been made for forever and temples, but like an FGC temple where people can meet and gather and play games. That's kind of it hasn't been around for very long, obviously, and it's also it takes a lot of resources. So what a lot of people do is they'll take whatever establishment that they have, whatever space that they have, and they'll kind of make like FGC time or fighting game time with that space. And when I was in Thailand, it was a Chinese restaurant where where the player Book and a lot of his friends met up to grind Tekken. And so I guess this is kind of how you guys got into it. It was a video game store in this case, which makes sense. You guys have all the games and the gear and have all the controllers. Like when I was young, I was jealous of people who worked at electronics boutique, or I guess GameStop as it's called now. Those places, I was like, man, you have access to like all these games and Funko Land. I don't know if you ever remember
Funko Land.
Do you remember Funko Land? Yeah, that was they had you could that was the first time I ever saw that you could sell games and buy games, and there was like used games and new games, and I remember the prices were still pretty high for the used games there.
Yeah. Actually, the first time I ever traded in a game was in Korea. I got to trade in a cartridge. In like 91, 92, they would let you trade in a cartridge and then you would get like half off the next cartridge.
What? Okay. Yeah. Wow.
That was pretty cool.
That's a pretty good deal.
Yeah, they were doing buy, sell, trade like early 90s here. So
yeah, that was those were times. The times are very different now, right? So, so you guys are doing this stuff. I remember I kind of got to know you through Jabali.
Yeah.
Right. Jabali had come to Korea, and I think that was the first time that I had met you. And I guess, obviously, you guys are in Florida and do FGC stuff. And what kind of work have you done with CEO? And I know you're doing like all sorts of stuff now, but how did you get started with CEO? And I guess how did you get to know Jabali and all that stuff?
Oh, so funny story. The first time I ever met Jabali, it was before the first CEO. So it was back in 2010. Street Fighter 4 was out, and we were at a tournament and some comic shop, and basically, I've never heard of him, never met him before, but near winners finals, I hear somebody bitching and crying, and they're like, "This tournament is bullshit. This is rigged, blah, blah, blah. You guys don't follow any rules here." And then he was telling his buddy, "Hey, pack up my monitor. We're getting out of here, blah, blah, blah." And he was crying because he lost winners finals.
Oh,
so that's how I first met Alex. I don't know if I should say that out loud. But yeah, I was like, man, I was just sitting there in the corner. I'm already out of the bracket. And I'm like, man, who the hell is this bitch? What is the biggest crybaby I've ever met in my life? And and after that, I was like, man, that guy's weird. But somehow we ended up going out to dinner together a few months later with a mutual friend.
Okay.
And it was like, we kind of just talked and met, and it was like a big group of us. And and I was like, I guess the guy's okay. He's kind of full of himself, though. And I don't know why. His hairline was already beginning to recede in 2011.
I can tell you guys are really close.
We're
now.
best friends now. Yeah. I love Alex to death.
Oh,
but I will defend him till my last, but I will be the first one to insult him.
But I actually have more details about that.
Yeah.
So it wasn't just a comic book shop. It was actually a card shop, and the person that he lost to in winners finals was the best player in Tampa, and he was the best player in Orlando. So that was why it was like
so there's kind of a rivalry going. Yeah, that was actually a deep match.
Mm-hmm.
That so I guess the salt does originate from somewhere.
Yeah, and it was Jabali played Balrog, and the other guy played Akuma, and Jabali hates Akuma.
Yeah. So, no, I actually played Jabali's boxer, and he bodied me in Korea. I was playing Ryu, so it's not an OS, but it's a little bit hard. Yeah. But he's got a boxer for sure. So I guess when you work with Jabali, when you work with CEO, I guess that's kind of how you got into doing like tournament stuff on a bigger scale.
Yeah.
Obviously, the stuff that you're doing out of the game store was at one level, and you started doing more and more stuff. And I guess was there any kind of breakthrough moment where you realized, oh, okay, like organizing this stuff, this is what I want to keep on doing, and I want to grow this and do more things with this? Is there a moment that you felt that way?
So when I was doing TNS stuff over the years, I was just doing it for fun, right? I'm just like, oh, we keep making it bigger, but we're doing it for fun. We don't have an end goal or whatever at the time. This is all pre-COVID. And then 2019 hit, and I guess Jabali had gone through a few people who had helped him run CEO, and then he didn't have anybody for 2019. And I was, me and him at that point, we were best friends. I'm over his house. We're just hanging out, and he's telling me about it. And I was like, you know what? I'll do it. Again, I've obviously, at that point, I've already grown my personal event, TNS, to a, like a small regional. We had like 600-700 people. It wasn't nothing crazy, but I was like, I got a little bit of experience. I've been to every CEO, and I've commentated here. I help run brackets here, whatever. I'll come through and I'll run the event for you. And and that's how we got started. And that's when I realized I really like doing this thing. This TOing, organizing, managing events kind of thing.
Yeah, it's a very gratifying kind of thing when you can make everything come together. You see all the people getting hype and, coming to the event and, not just having a good time, but there's like kind of a deeper aspect to meeting up with everyone in person, right? And so this is kind of interesting because obviously nowadays online is a huge option, and with Tampa Never Sleeps online, there have been a ton of tournaments you guys have been doing, hosting online, and there's so much activity, and I guess this is kind of another aspect where kind of an extension of the tournament organizing that you guys have been doing. But I guess, can you tell me a little bit about like how the online stuff came about? Obviously, with the netcode has gotten much better. More game companies have been adopting rollback netcode and all that stuff. But can you tell me a little bit about how the online stuff came about and how it differs from the stuff that you guys do offline?
Yeah. So 2020, obviously, COVID has hit, and everybody has to stay home, right? And we're just like, man, we're really bored. We can't go anywhere. We're not even going to work. So, you know what? Let's just play Marvel. But we can't go out and play Marvel with our friends anymore like we used to. We still had a very active local scene back in 2019. And then so in 2020, we're like, well, you know what? Let's try this thing called Parsec. One of my buddies, Fredo, actually was like, hey, Parsec, you guys should play it. And for months, maybe over a year, I was like, nah, I don't want to play that.
So I was totally like that. I'm using Parsec every day now.
Yeah.
And when I first heard about that, I'm like, what is this weird thing?
I don't want to play
like
on
that.
Yeah. And one of us is on, and so it was this thing. And then, and I was like, you know what, fine, I'll give it a shot. So we gave it a shot. We were just playing off of our PC and other people were connecting. We were having 8-person tournaments, and, we had like 10, 15 people watching. Every single person we knew personally. We had no like real audience there when we started. And we were just having fun with it. And then eventually it started growing and people started hitting us up and was like, hey, can I play? We only had 8-player brackets because, we really couldn't fit anymore. We just had the one setup. And then one of our buddies, somebody I didn't really know him at the time, but a good friend of mine now, Jason, he actually was like, hey, I have this process where you guys can connect to a different, a virtual machine and blah, blah, blah. And I was like, maybe, whatever, we'll try it out. And he set it all up. And then, from there, we were just, we could have multiple setups at the same time. We're like, well, let's expand these brackets. So the brackets got a little bigger. The viewership got a little bigger, and then, from there, Marvel just kept growing. That was the only game we did in 2020, and I remember sometime in the fall, Maximilian was actually watching us.
Ooh, okay.
And he was kind of showing us on his channel.
Yeah, fellow Marvel head.
Yeah,
right?
yeah. Obviously, Max is, huge into Marvel.
Yeah.
Every single Marvel game. So, and big supporter of this, Marvel scene. And when he watched us, that brought a lot of viewers to us. And honestly, that was kind of like what really helped us, I guess spring up or, kind of grow, our viewership base and things like that. So he really helped out a lot. And then he did Twitch Rivals for Marvel. And yeah, and then from there, it was just like, oh, this is it's still a fun thing. We're not, it's not like, we're going to replace our jobs with it or anything like that. And then Guilty Gear came out in 2021. We're like, oh, you know what? Let's host that too. And then King of Fighters came out. We're like, you know what? Let's do that too. And then we just kept adding every game until it became what it is today. But yeah, it was an interesting experience. So yeah,
yeah, that seems like it's almost like you guys had to start over again, or not that you had to start over again, but that the process was kind of reset. So the way that you did like offline event stuff was you guys just wanted to do stuff from the game shop and have these kind of late night tournaments. But now with the pandemic era, it was kind of, you guys were just starting with like 8 players or just playing on Parsec, and it's almost like kind of like a reset. And so there's something that kind of that you can kind of glean from that, right? There's a very grassroots aspect of what you guys are doing. I mean, that's kind of like a very often used term, but it's really meaningful here. You guys are kind of a traveling broadcast tournament organizing team that's very, very rooted in the FGC. I think on your Twitter profile, you actually said, I don't know if you wrote that, but it says TNS stands for Fighting Game Community, which is a pretty bold statement. Do you guys have any interest in doing anything other than fighting games, or are you just pretty much strictly want to do activity in fighting games? I guess, what does that mean to that TNS stands for Fighting Game Community?
So our brand, our identity, what we stand for, and the purpose of all of this is for fighting games. That's what we love. That's what we play every day. That's what we watch and what we talk about every day. Fighting games is what we love. The people in the fighting game community, that's who we do it for. And obviously, we've done some minor things here and there for things outside of fighting games, sports games, shooters, music, whatever. But those are all things that we do. Like that's not a part of our identity. Those are just like, hey, we gotta pay some of these bills. But yeah,
I like the honesty. Yeah.
But TNS, sure. TNS itself as a brand, even though we may do other work, our end goal is not to get out of fighting games. Our end goal is to elevate fighting games as big as anything else out there. Yeah. If we take work in other games, it's purely so that we can keep paying the bills and continue to do fighting games, right? That's what we've always talked about. So that's what it means that TNS stands for Fighting Game Community, because that's what we're going to be, that's what we're trying to push. Like I said, we're not, I know a lot of people get into fighting games. This bothers me a little bit. I don't want to hate on anybody.
Okay.
But this bothers me a little bit when people are like, they get into fighting games to hopefully springboard into other esports.
The lateral move. Yeah.
And I'm like, that's cool. Do other stuff too. And no one's going to stop you. You know what I mean? If somebody wants us to, broadcast a Valorant tournament, we will do it. We've done it. But like, that's not what our end goal is. Our end goal is to elevate fighting games and to make fighting games enough for all of us,
Yeah.
And that's, I see people that are always trying to springboard into something else by using fighting games. And I'm like,
yeah, there's kind of this idea that like fighting games has like an easy entry barrier, like a very it's just something that where you can get your feet wet, and then from there you can do other activities. Where I've heard this in other fields too, where people will have this intention, like in the filmmaking industry, where people will be like, okay, if I do this one job, if I'm a grip or I do sound, then I can work my way up and then laterally move to another role or position. Now, I don't know how much that works for them, but it seems like that kind of that order of operations, it seems like there's something not sound about that kind of intention, although it might work for some people. But I can definitely see where you're coming from. So you said that I actually looked this up. I do some research before you're actually my first guest outside of Kevin. Kevin's more of a partner, or we're a duo, right? Co-host. But you are a co-host, and you're my first guest. So I did the research and looked up that you actually were the head of tournament operations for EVO 2024 this year, which is that was a very, very big event. I mean, it's been growing and growing, and I just can't wrap my head around what that would entail, because there's so many moving parts. If anyone's been to Evo, you can see how many bracket runners there are. There's like a command center, or I don't know if they still call it the command center, where they have like all these people that are just there to help solve problems and get the information. It's almost like SCVs going to the command center in StarCraft, trying to bring back the minerals, which is like the data for the tournament. And I noticed, I think they're still doing it on paper, right? If I'm not mistaken. Yeah, they're still doing the old school handwritten records. And to be in charge of something at that scale, what are you doing? What are your operations? Are you just like kind of like just talking to people and like that's it? You're just on the phone all the time, or is it like, are you like hands on? Like I remember I saw DreamHack Dallas. Jabali was like putting in like Street Fighter 6 discs into the PlayStations and like taking them out, and I remember. So what are the operations like in such a big tournament?
Honestly, I just sit in the corner and cry most of the time. So,
all right.
But I mean, realistically, the Evo is a huge machine, right?
Yeah.
I'm just a small part in it. My title is just a fancy word for head TO. But there's so many people that work at Evo, especially on the tournament staff, right? I mean, this is a collection of some of the most experienced and skilled, TOs and, talent that there is, in all of fighting games. A lot of people that I look up to, a lot of people that I have followed and studied and have done incredible work within the community. So it's not a huge task for me to try to just keep everybody on the same page. That's really all I'm trying to do, trying to make sure that everybody, all our bases are covered, and, there's no gaps, there's no oversight on any of our tournament operations. And honestly, with so many people that are more skilled than I am, to be honest, and more experienced than I am, I mean, it's kind of like I feel like I got the easiest job, So,
well, I guess in your position, what are things that you don't want to happen, or what are the things that you're looking out for the most in your position? Like, what's the bad news that you don't want to hear in your position? What would make you cry the most in the corner? And
honestly, the biggest mistakes that could happen are things that are outside of your control, right? If somebody out there runs a bracket and the results are all wrong, right? Because we do still, still use pen and paper or pencil and paper. Mistakes can happen, right? And the reason we use pencil and paper is because obviously trying to get network in a venue that large and trying to have it be reliable and hope that, network doesn't go down or a website doesn't go down or anything like that.
Yeah.
You don't want the entire tournament to stop because of a technical difficulty, right?
Yes.
So therefore we still use pen and paper. And if somebody inputs one wrong result, that could have catastrophic effects throughout the rest of the bracket.
That could be cascading. I imagine like if there's one wrong result and then people go ahead with that and they're playing a bunch of matches, I guess the longer that goes on, the more you have to kind of backtrack to fix the issue, if you can even do that. So I guess, I don't know if this is something you could talk about, but like, is there any like procedure in those situations where maybe there was somebody kept the wrong results or wrote down the wrong thing and it caused extra problems? Do you guys go back and try to find the people again and do the matches again, or is there? How do you handle those kind of situations?
So this is actually an occurrence that does happen in many events, right? Evo obviously being the largest event is, just by the sheer number of brackets is more likely to happen there, but it can happen at, any of your favorite large events, when people are running on pen and paper, or even on Start GG, honestly, you can mess it up digitally too.
For sure.
But yeah, and basically what you try to do is you try to catch it as early as possible, because we have, teams of tournament organizers that are going over all of these brackets to make sure, hey, this, is this right? Is this correct? Updating it as we go. But, if you do catch something like that, you try to backtrack it, you try to find the players. So sometimes, players themselves will catch mistakes, and, bless those players who help us out on that.
Yeah.
But, if something does go on, it's, we'll just try to, go backwards on it. So, and just, start back over where we, might have messed up. So.
Okay. Makes sense. So you guys have been doing, obviously not just CEO, not just Evo, Combo Breaker as well. I've seen Smash tournaments, even First Attack. I think you guys did a tournament there. You guys are doing all sorts of events. What are the big differences that you notice between some of these events? And I guess maybe to make the question more precise, like if you're going from a CEO to an Evo to a Combo Breaker to going abroad to a completely different country to do an event, how do those challenges differ? And is there anything that you prefer?
I think my favorite part of the FGC is that every major event, every successful event has its own identity, right?
Yeah.
An Evo is definitely a different experience than a Combo Breaker, than a CEO or a Frosty Faustings. And every event having its own identity is what makes it so fun to go to all of these events instead of just one, right? Evo is obviously the mecca of competition, right? You have so many players there. You can meet all of your, favorite personalities from the FGC, your favorite YouTubers, commentators, who are your players, whatever. And you have such a huge international presence. And, and it's so many casual fans too. It's, you don't get, 20 something, I don't know the exact number, but 20 something thousand people in one building that love fighting games, and they're all super serious competitive players, right? Like some of them are just like, I really like watching, or I like mashing buttons, and that's okay. Everybody is a part of the community, and the community does need everyone. But, and then you go to a Combo Breaker and it feels really about the games, right? It's really a celebration of all of these games. And that's what I love about Combo Breaker. When you go out there and, obviously it's the second largest fighting game right after, fighting game tournament right after Evo.
Yeah.
And when you go out there, it's just, you can tell that every game is being celebrated. There are so many titles in the main lineup and the, in the side events, the all in together. Yeah. So it's just, it feels like a great celebration, obviously extremely well run. See, when you go to CEO, it feels more fun. It feels like I'm just having a good time all the time.
Yeah. I mean, we've seen the videos of, famously, like you can see Jabali at the wrestling show and is it Jabali Land, the arcade or whatever? Like it seems like you guys, I've never been to CEO. I hope Jabali's still not mad about that, but I am going to go. He's every time I meet him now, he's always just like, so when are you coming to CEO? Or, you said that you would go, and I will go. But yeah, there's definitely a different vibe with every event. And I guess you're probably more comfortable doing stuff, I guess, within the U.S., whereas you might have less control when you go to different countries and do or outside, maybe not just different countries, but even just outside of home base. So I've talked to some TOs and broadcasters that kind of go around doing events here and there in different regions, and it almost feels like it's like a traveling circus or a traveling band. You guys have like your gear that you have to bring, and you guys are doing shows, kind of. It's kind of like a show, kind of like a concert, and you guys are prepping everything. You're working with talent in a way. There's like big players that are coming and traveling, and you guys kind of have like this tightly knit team. I've seen you guys multiple times here in Korea, and you guys are sticking together like a team, like almost like a band or a troupe. So I guess, what is that life like on the road?
It's a lot of fun, and it can be stressful at the same time. Obviously, a very generic thing to say, but it's really about the the camaraderie that we have, right? I mean, sometimes we can get on each other's nerves. These guys get on my nerves all the time. They're getting on my nerves right now, actually. But it's really about when you're when you're friends with somebody. If you're friends with somebody and they do you wrong or they upset you, you can just not be friends with them.
Yeah.
But when you're family with somebody and somebody in your family pisses you off, you still got to be family. And that's what it feels like. When we are working together, it feels like family. Yeah, you know what? I'm not the best dad here. You know what I mean? So as TNS dad, I'm not the best dad. But I try to do everything that I can to keep everybody together. Everybody on the team plays their part to, lead their own areas and, work hard that we can all push together, and all be successful. And I think that's really the thing that keeps us together is that everyone on our team knows that the other person is fighting the same fight, whether they get along or not. And most of our team gets along fabulously.
Yeah.
It's just,
I think it's kind of necessary for what you guys are faced up against and what you guys have to do. Because I mean, it's, I've been a content creator that's just kind of hid in the mountains for a very long time, and then just like release something. It's like, hey guys, look at this thing I made, and hope you guys like it. And then I disappear again for a long time, and then make something. And for you guys, like when you guys do the live stuff, there's no it's. As it's happening, if there's a problem that comes up, you guys have to extinguish those fires. And, there's the saying, fighting game people love to say, streaming's a blow up, right? There's always something that goes wrong. It's not about like if something will go wrong. It's about it's about how you're going to fix it, right?
When it's not a matter of if, it's a matter of when.
It's a matter of when, yeah. And so I don't, do you guys like these kind of like, this kind of line of work kind of reminds me of almost like a military operation in a sense where time is of the essence. Maybe I'm dramatizing it a little too much, but it's like when something needs to get fixed, like every 5 minutes, or every minute, every second is like valuable. I mean, if it's grand finals, how valuable is every second in a genre of game where like an entire match lasts like 10 to 15 minutes potentially, right? So there must be, you guys must have some crazy stories, and I don't know if anybody wants to share anything that would embarrass the other person or anything, but.
Now, it's definitely an extremely stressful situation. I feel like our team is, kind of almost always, not always, no one's perfect, but almost always prepared for something to go wrong. So obviously when something does go wrong, because like we said, it's not a matter of if, it's when we are ready to turn that around as soon as possible. So you may see a small blip or whatever, but we're always prepared because we do so many shows that we've seen all the problems, and we study a lot of the people that do it even better than we do. And we're just like, oh, we need to, make sure that this was, I see that was almost a problem, and this is how they fixed it. We need to fix it. We need to come up with our own system, whatever. So yeah, it can get pretty crazy sometimes and get pretty stressful. Tensions are pretty high.
Yeah.
But, at the end of the day, like I said, the most important thing is that we all know we're on the same team. So we're not really, when somebody shouts out an order, it doesn't matter if you're the production lead like Lucas or if you're the, whoever you are. It doesn't matter if you're the grip, if you're the audio guy. Whoever shouts out a command, everybody follows. We work together as a team,
Yeah.
So that's really nice. There's been some crazy stuff that has happened, but yeah, nothing particular comes to mind.
Yeah.
In a live setting, but yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I'm just curious about things like what happens if like the internet in the venue just cuts out. I mean, I heard people use like their phone services. Is that like a thing, or have you guys had to do that in some emergency situations?
Yeah, we've definitely had the internet cut out in some situations. We, obviously we have like a backup hotspot thing, but we've never had to. It's never come down to that. Luckily for us. So yeah, I mean, we haven't had any issues like that on our streams. Anytime it does happen, we just kind of play out that match, and and we just wait for the next one, and when the internet does come back. So obviously everything's set to record as well, so you'll still be able to catch that in the future on our YouTube or whatever. But yeah, it is kind of like it's in the middle of it's in the middle of pools or phase 2 and internet cuts out. You just kind of have to let the players keep playing, because obviously the competitive integrity is the most important. And then you're just like, okay, the match is over, we'll just have to wait for our internet to come back.
Yeah.
And
that's kind of, I guess that's kind of, that makes sense how these things will happen, but you just have to make the best of the situation and try to solve the problem as quickly as possible while keeping the tournament running well. As there's like tournament TOing, which is separate from the broadcasting aspect, right? I mean, but I guess they're intertwined in a way. You guys have to communicate together who's up next, and is this going to be streamed? And I guess that's all kind of put together. I guess it's separate in my mind, but it seems very, very intertwined.
Yeah, they're definitely interconnected. You can't, you really can't operate one without the other. Everybody has to communicate. Without the tournament side, there's no matches to broadcast and so you kind of have to work together there. And it's really important to have an understanding of the struggles of both sides.
Yeah.
I think a lot of people are fixated on their own side and they're like, oh, it's this other side's fault. And then the other side goes, yeah, well, it's their fault,
Yeah, I'm guessing one of your responsibilities is kind of like link those two sides together and make sure that things go smoothly on each side so that the communication can, continue to keep going so that there are less mistakes.
Yeah, it's definitely an important aspect of my job. And I feel like, some of the training that I've had from, running broadcast and also TOing events have kind of allowed me to see both perspectives. So that's been really helpful.
Yeah, that's awesome. So I guess we talked a little bit about like sometimes having to do some other kinds of work, maybe outside of FGC stuff, to pay the bills or take these jobs that during times when you guys, there's not FGC stuff all the time, right? What about unpopular fighting games? Is that something you guys like? How do you guys think about that, approach that? I mean, there's I don't want to say unpopular. I should say maybe fighting games that are more obscure. And I've noticed if you look at CEO, there's CEO Taco, which is kind of it's kind of a separate event for kind of a different games and different activities. So I don't know, is that an example of how these kind of smaller titles can get seen, or is smaller titles, is that just kind of an area that should just be left to the communities to just come in maybe during get a side tournament spot at a big event and represent that way? How do you approach the kind of more obscure titles?
Now, before I start, I need you to name what this obscure or smaller title is, because I don't want to personally offend any communities.
Right.
So I'll let you do that.
So I'm going to announce for the 100th time, I am an Evo champ in Sailor Moon S. There's my trophy right there. This is the trophy. Yeah. That was at Evo Japan 2020. Yeah, there was I think a whole 30 people at the event.
I didn't know I was in the room with an Evo champion.
Yeah. So I didn't want to tell you might be a bit nervous for this podcast, So
a little bit now. I'm sweating now.
So I guess something like Sailor Moon S is obviously it's a retro game that it has a pretty big IP, but it was ArcSys's kind of first game before they were known as ArcSys, and it is a cool game. But it's definitely something that, it got a little bit of traction at one point. I think they maxed out for a side tournament at a couple of Evos. And I don't know how is that just the community streaming it? I mean, I guess from the Sailor Moon side, I think it was a community member of the game that was broadcasting it at the time. So, how do you guys approach that level of game, for example?
Oh, okay. Yeah. So, if you're talking about a more smaller, a smaller niche game like Sailor Moon, which is actually, I think it's a great game, because first time I ever saw it was at the very first CEO Taku, and I was like, this is a fighting game? I was like, this is fire.
It's fun.
Yeah. They had the CRT out and everything for it. So I thought it was crazy. But no, if you have a game like Sailor Moon and you wanted to, you want to keep it going, I feel like it's very important to continue to push it at all the in-person events, right? Let people play for free and just have fun with it, right? Treat it, treat it as something that, is kind of open to everybody. That's kind of how we, treated Marvel for a long time.
Okay.
After it kind of died out of Evo, right? Like I think 2017 was the last year for that. But also online is always a big tool, right? I think the biggest help for at least the community that I'm the most familiar with, which is Marvel, is that getting online visibility, right? Whether it's Twitch, YouTube, you can go to Twitter and TikTok. If there's a way for people to play it and a way for people to watch it, it's gonna help grow that community. It's gonna help keep it going. I don't know if there's like I don't know if we're allowed to talk about a modded version of the game or whatever, or where you can play it online. But if somebody could have an online tournament for Sailor Moon and broadcast it and people watch it, that would be hilarious. That would be very entertaining. That would that would get new eyes on it. You get 10,000 people to watch it, over on a YouTube video. You get 10,000 unique people to watch it. Maybe 0.1% of people will pick it up and play it. So now you got 10 new players in the community.
Yeah.
That's huge.
Yeah.
That's huge,
That's cool. Yeah. You mentioned, I guess Marvel is something that obviously you love. You put it in your bio as well. In terms of I guess the way Marvel is now, we have MVC2, 3. 3 is the game that you play probably the most. And of course, there's MVCI, that game we're talking about, like games being modded. That's I think, Maximilian Dude is kind of working on that as well. And in a certain way, Dragon Ball FighterZ DBFZ was kind of like a spiritual successor to Marvel in a way, because that's something that really resonated with the FGC, and not just any FGC people, but people who really loved Marvel. And so I guess what are the things that you wish would happen with the Marvel scene? Are you just happy with MVC3 and you just want to keep playing that? Do you have any hopes for how Marvel in the future can turn out?
So, I mean, with Marvel 3, I don't want to say it's peaked, because I feel like it's never peaked. I mean, obviously we had a huge turnout in the last Evo 2023, when it was a main game, 1,300 players, huge record for our community. But honestly, I'm very happy with where it is now. We have a lot of players that are active week in and week out. We have our TNS online weeklies, which have, on average 60 to 80 players every single week. So that's fantastic. And, thousands of people watch it every week. So I'm very happy about that. So, yeah, I mean, I don't really have any hopes other than Marvel continues to grow and people continue to pick it up. There's a lot of new players coming into the scene, competing on Parsec. I think the one thing I could hope for, Capcom, if you're listening, is rollback netcode for Marvel 3.
Yes, that's right. That game was before the rollback craze hit. That's right.
So if we could have kind of like how MVC2 got the collection, if we could have that.
Old Guilty Gear games are getting it, right?
Yeah.
So it's I guess it's not impossible, right?
I imagine it's much harder for a game like Marvel 3 with the way that it works to implement rollback. But it's it'd be my one last wish. So
okay, awesome, awesome. So I guess what brings you to Korea this time? I guess I guess you've come here like many times before for doing events stuff, but also as a vacation, right? I believe you guys are this is kind of vacation time mostly here, this trip. So I guess, why Korea?
So obviously, one thing, I was born here. So, obviously I have fond memories as a child, and, also I speak some of the language barely, like just enough to order food. But other than that, I just really like the culture here. I'm a huge fan of the culture here. And, everybody's it feels relaxed. You can just walk around outside, and the vibes are really good. It's really hard to put into words the feeling that I get when I walk in the streets of Korea, in Seoul in particular. So but that's really it. I mean, it makes me feel relaxed. It helps me kind of just reset my mind and get my mind off of, other things that have, kind of worn me down over the years.
Yeah. Yeah, awesome. Yeah, I mean, I live here, so obviously I like it here. So it's yeah, I understand everything you're saying. So I guess uh, to I'm kind of winding this down, but I guess I have like another big topic that I just kind of want to try to delve into a little bit, just because it's contemporary. So how has the role of AI affected what you do in your industry? Is there something that it's too early to tell? Maybe it's not even worth thinking about yet. Is it something where there's it's affecting things? Maybe maybe you have to deal with more like bot spam or something. You're noticing an uptick in that. Is there anything about this technology that is making an effect on the way you guys are doing things now at this moment, or do you think it will? If not now, do you think it will have an effect in the future in some way?
So I feel like, at least in the line of work that I'm in with, broadcast or tournament organization, on the level that I'm doing it, it hasn't affected us in particular. I can definitely see where it could be implemented in ways where it could help out in the future, right? Whether it's, helping with, bracket management, or, or broadcast assets, things like that, like where, like somebody has something I saw where basically they have a tool that can watch the match and then make the thumbnail and create the title and just clip that match and upload it to YouTube for you.
Oh wow!
Right?
Okay, so that's like completely automated.
Yeah. And it's not like AI art or anything like that. Like they just take the character asset that you already have, and then they just take the names that for the players, and it reads that from the screen, and then they take the event logo that you want on there, and then they just automatically make those, and then they add the titles with the characters on it, and the phase of the bracket that it is, and then they just upload it for you. They clip it for you, and then so I've seen that with AI. We haven't utilized anything like that yet, but I feel like things like that, like I said, I'm not smart enough to know what it can do for us, but I'm fairly certain it's going to play a part in how we operate in the future as an industry, right?
I've seen like some I guess some software that has been made. This is before like the AI craze. There's a guy named who goes by Drake Fang. He's the TO for the original arcade stream out here in the 4 days and most of 5. But he was a programmer also, so he made this software where there'd be a screen for all the players that are in the tournament that can see like an estimated time until their next match. It had all the information, but it felt like almost like when you go to the airport and you have the flight display, right, where you can see all the things. And he was making stuff like that, and I just found it interesting because there's a lot of little things that I feel like these kind of technologies and software can help with. But then at the same time, it's so interesting to see that something like Evo, which is like at the end game of all this, they're doing pen and paper or pencil and paper. Not even pen and paper. You guys are using pencils, right?
You gotta be able to erase those results.
Yeah. But it's super interesting how this stuff is playing out with the technology as well. So it was nice to have you as my first guest on this podcast. I hope I asked some good questions.
No, this was a lot of fun. I don't do a lot of podcasts or interviews or anything like that. I get sometimes I get asked and I feel really bad because I'm like, I don't have anything interesting to say. They think I'm going to say something interesting and I don't. Kind of like
there's a lot of interesting things, and I think definitely there'll be more of this. Hopefully Jabili will be okay with the stuff that you said about him earlier in the podcast.
We'll all fix this with make sure everybody goes to CEO next year, Orlando, June. I don't remember the dates. Doesn't matter though. Look it up. Go on behalf of Gerald, who can't make it. So.
All right. You just convinced me. Right there from that advertisement. Awesome. Yeah. Thanks. And I guess I'll see you. When's the next event that you guys are running?
Oh, we're going to be at Sea Otaku, actually. So Sea Otaku this year is in December. We're actually working with an anime convention in Orlando called Holiday Matsuri.
Yeah.
Huge anime convention. Honestly, I went last year when it was just the convention itself before we were involved in it. And it was an amazing time. And now, they have brought us on to be a part of their event. I think it's going to be a great experience for all players and attendees. So yeah, I'm looking forward to that. Sea Otaku, all your favorite anime games are going to be there. My favorite anime game, Street Fighter 6, will be there. So
yeah, awesome. Yeah. I guess one more thing. I guess this is something podcasters do. I think. What are your socials? Where can we find you? That's a podcast thing to say, right?
Is it? I don't know what a podcaster thing to say is.
I don't know either. I have no idea what I'm doing.
I have actually never watched or listened to a podcast before.
Oh, really? Okay.
Never once, actually.
Really?
This is the first experience I've ever had with a podcast. My buddies listen to podcasts.
Your first experience is being on a podcast. You've been on more podcasts than you've listened to. You're basically like Sam Altman or something, right?
Oh, well, yeah. I mean, Tong never sleeps everywhere. Tong never sleeps on Twitter, Instagram. Nobody pays attention to my Instagram. You don't want that. But yeah, Twitter. And then also on Twitch, Tampa Never Sleeps. Obviously, YouTube, Tampa Never Sleeps. And TikTok, Tampa Never Sleeps. So.
All right. TikTok as well.
Yeah.
Awesome.
TikTok, I feel like, is going to be the future of fighting games as well.
Yeah.
A lot of people don't know this, but I think that if we're going to grow fighting games, as a community, TikTok is the way we're going to bring in these casual fans. That way we can fill up stadiums.
They just need to make vertical fighting games, though.
You're right. We need that.
That'd be really hard to play, I think. But
look,
yeah, that would be
Valorant
amazing.
is horizontal. League is horizontal. Look, we can make it work. Actually, I'm thinking about streaming on TikTok soon.
Really?
Yeah, I'm thinking about streaming our tournaments on TikTok, seeing if that would help. I'm sure it'll take a while for it to pick up, but I think that would be an interesting aspect.
All right. Well, I'm glad I asked you about your socials then. Yeah. All right. That is a perfect start. All right. Thank you for being on this podcast. And we are signing out later.
Oh, actually, this is an open question to everyone. It can be off the record too. What do you guys feel about YouTube content vultures?
I would love to talk about this.
Well,
we're
question,
keeping this.
Yeah. So the reason I ask is, I always kind of personally battle this without trying to tell anyone, because when I go to the events and stuff, one of them could be the content vulture, So I don't want to expose myself. But then when I'm on YouTube, I'll be like, oh, this guy uploaded this tournament that I was at. That's not from the official channel. I would report. It's like copyrighted content.
Yeah.
Right? So I would do that as like a small revenge, I could do to them. But I don't know what did you guys want something to happen, or is there something that you guys taking action to do to address those kind of things, or?
So, I mean, like I said, I guess it depends on the exact definition of content vulture, right?
Yeah.
If you're talking about, taking the actual footage, broadcasted on, one of the official event channels, and then ripping that and putting that on your channel, fire you to start.
Yes.
All right.
Flame. So I'm talking about those, yes, like you said, with the overlay and everything. So the in-game replay is it's a little gray area, so I don't mind that. But it actually has your logos, your overlays, your camera work and everything.
Yeah. And that's what I don't like. If you're making clips, if you're making a highlight reel or whatever, or if you're kind of reviewing it or whatever, I'm perfect. Perfectly.
Or putting in some clips in a video essay.
If you're, people make highlight reels of themselves or their favorite moments or whatever. Do that. That's great. That's great for the FGC as a whole. But if you're just taking the exact same content and then uploading it and trying to catch views before the main channel uploads it, that's scummy. That you're doing that solely so that you can make money off someone else's work. Now, like I said, if you're making clips, making TikToks, do whatever, do all of that. That's fun. If you're doing reviews, let's watch this together, blah, blah, blah. I fully support that all the time. Actually, Sajam used to watch a lot of our Guilty Gear Strive VODs the day after, and then he would review and talk about it. And, he talked to me, but he asked me about it once. Is that okay? I was like, please do that. Please do that. That's great. You know what I mean? That's more Sajam content out there, and Sajam is great for the FGC. But like there are people that obviously we all see that are literally just taking matches out of tournament VODs or taking the whole tournament VOD and uploading it. And I'm like, bro, you are just stealing. You are just stealing. And we report them all the time. You can't catch all of them. You know what I mean? There's some out there that have like thousands of videos.
They're like cockroaches. They just keep
coming
evolving.
up.
Yeah.
Like, where are they coming from?
They're just like, oh, I made $46 and now, and I, whatever. They don't care. They don't care about anybody but themselves. I don't consider them. I don't know. What I wish would happen to them is, I don't know. I wish they would find something else to do. Make your own content. Stop stealing content. Like, damn, like I said, if you need to take some clips, and you want to put it out there, that's fine. But if we are working our asses off to put these events together and you're just going to take it and upload it so you can make money before us, like, it's cutting into our ability to, run these events, pay for our staff, things like that. And I'm pretty pissed off. Every time I see it, I get a little annoyed, it's like getting bit by a mosquito. It's not going to affect you huge in the long run, but you get bitten by enough mosquitoes.
It's going to make your life miserable. Yeah. That's, I've had my content being freebooted on a bunch of platforms. And what's interesting is there's platforms that like, I didn't know about, right? So like, I mean, this is like in other countries and like, and it's like, okay, whatever. I mean, what am I going to do about that, right? But then the reason why I got interested in getting on TikTok was I found out that somebody freebooted like a big chunk of my video and no commentary or no, just took that portion and put it on there and got like 300,000 views. And the person who alerted me was just somebody who watches my channel who emailed me about it. It just sent me like, hey, just so you know, Gerald, there's somebody just like totally ripped your content, and I was like trying to navigate this new app like a millennial, just like what is this thing? And I think I found it. I think oh wait, this is my voice. My voice is playing, and basically I don't know what to do. I mean, I barely know this platform, and I think I just responded with like hello or something, like as Corey Gaming. I was just like hi or something, and like that was it. And then and now I guess we're starting to upload like shorts and clips, and we're doing that now here. So maybe a few years too late, but yeah, I guess it's on some level it's like a good way to combat that is to just I guess like put that content out like quicker, I guess, or make your plant your flag, I guess, in some of these platforms. But I guess you can't do that. It doesn't solve everything, but I'm not gonna make like a Yoku account or whatever,
Billy.
Yeah, I'm not gonna make a Billy account.
That's one of the things that we're having to do now, just to try to beat a lot of these content vultures, is that we literally have somebody that's waiting for a block of the tournament to be over. So during the show day, we have somebody that is uploading the video, uploading top 8 or whatever, right? And it's just, man. And even then, it doesn't matter. They'll still come out and they'll still, do whatever they can. There was one that was really scummy.
Okay.
Really scummy the other day. It was a couple weeks ago from ECT, where basically they took the Daigo Supriyan match, right? And of course,
I think I saw this on social media. Yeah.
Anytime there's a woman playing a fighting game, somebody will try to make it so that way they're like, they're trying to trying to steal views for it.
Some cringy clickbait title and try
that was the cringiest title I've ever seen for Shy Daigo.
Shy Daigo.
Yeah. Shy Daigo sound like his rapper name, like Shy Daigo.
Oh man. Okay.
Yeah. So sometimes I don't know if this is a correct way to address it, but like maybe it's a good like campaign or a practice to not like repeatedly continuously say it on your official streams or whatever, but I just hope that whenever people go on YouTube and watch a match from a certain tournament and then the uploader channel name is like someone you don't know, then perhaps you have to kind of get in the behavior where you back out and then actually go to the like TNS YouTube or whatever. Like I just hope that becomes the norm one day, instead of just, because I know the convenience is there. Sure, you cannot beat convenience. It's like if it pops up on the first page of the search results, it's like, yeah, whatever. and that's not the official one, then like it kind of feels like you're at a loss, right? So hopefully, at least for the fighting game tournament, like VOD viewers, I hope once they do the search, and then even if it's not on the first search result, make sure they go to the right channel to view the tournaments.
Yeah, I mean, the viewers can definitely help make a difference. Obviously, you know, not everyone knows, and not everyone's gonna, you know, think about that when they're searching for stuff. But you know, if you make it so that these content vultures can't benefit, they'll eventually stop. You're not going to do something that you just never benefit from. You know, like, you know, and I mean, that's the whole purpose of being a content vulture, right? Is looking for your benefit.
Well, yeah, they're not getting any like, you know, deeper, like higher level meaning satisfaction out of doing something like that. It's not like, that's clearly self gain.
From this tournament.
Yeah, it's like, I want to be like, who's the Daigo of stealing footage from tournaments? Like, I want to be like that guy. You know, so okay, cool. Well, so you got Tong, you know, going after that.
Yeah, you asked, you know, you talk about the right things. I'll get heated.
Yeah, okay. Oh, that's a good way to wrap things up, I guess.
Future's in good hands.
Yeah. All right. Cool. All right. Thank you, guys, all of you guys for, you know, coming by. And
thank you so much, guys.
It's always a pleasure to have you guys here. And it'd be cool if we could do this next time.
Yeah, for sure.
Let's get some food. All right.
Korean food.
All right. See you later.
Peace. Awesome.
Let me get that run back though before we go.
Yes.
Who's been winning?
Have to. We're going neck and neck.
My Bison does well against Dulcin, but I think I want to try Rashid, but I don't know the matchup, man.
Very difficult.
His sim is good.